We are at yet another turning point in Elden Ring's life cycle, as the first DLC has been confirmed to be in development and could have an announcement trailer any day now. This trailer and other official release info could come anything from a couple weeks to several months from now, but once that's public, I'm quite certain, based off the pattern of DLC releases from its predecessor games, that the actual DLC could be made available in as little as less than a month after the release date is revealed. Now, of course, this announcement has got me excited for the DLC, not just for the teased PvE content, but also based off what will likely bring in terms of multiplayer and community. You can expect a whole host of new online content, features, and improvements, as well as how it will certainly bring an influx of new and returning players into the community. But I would be lying to myself if I said I didn't have any concerns. A lot of these concerns are that of the online features, as while I could go on and on about the possible shortcomings of the PvE content, the online content is what concerns me the most. And it should concern you too, even if you don't play online. Now here's why. While lots of people purely do PvE challenge and speedruns, modded single-player content, and lore analysis, the PvP and greater multiplayer community act as the game's social route, getting new players interested in doing something more in the game, helping them find new friends to play with and do creative things with, all of which often leads them to branch off into somewhere else in the community, something that interests them in the long term. I'm sure this was the case for countless of you, and it certainly was for me. I originally got into the Dark Souls 3 multiplayer when I saw videos like this, then modding as I met more people in the modding community, then multiplayer again as I met more people in the multiplayer community. And eventually I landed on primarily doing deep dives into the mechanics of PvP combat in these games. The reason for this is because as an extension of its combat as a whole, I think the PvP in these games have something you truly can't get anywhere else, and something that has an insane level of untapped potential, both in the actual mechanical PvP combat system itself, and how the game could give a feel of a thriving multiplayer world with endless things to do, most of which is seamlessly integrated with the game's RPG elements. That is to say, that currently, it is simply not getting the love it deserves. Not from the developers, nor the players. Despite there being an endless sea of content at this point appreciating the unique feel of fights in these games, I feel the surface has barely been scratched in terms of the objective understanding. And the boss fights of these games, for example, even those agreed to be of the most quality, like those of Sekiro and Dark Souls 3, have barely been realized in terms of how deep and interesting they could be with some innovations. The same can be said for the PvP, in the sense that the people playing it can feel how deep it really is in its bones, and that is only thanks to the countless shortcomings and issues it has, making people feel unmotivated and pessimistic about trying to take it further. What's the worth in playing if random lag just makes the game unplayable? What's the worth in playing if the game just completely changes depending on my opponent's latency? What is the worth in playing when things like aim punch and input drops exist? What's the worth in playing when there's only a couple viable setups, which in turn make everything else feel oppressed, mundane, and unusable? What's the point in playing when I can't connect to people in the first place, or when the game insists on skipping no matter how good my PC is?
Oh shit.
Oh, what the fuck is this skipping? Oh my god, it's really bad. Do you see the graph? Do you see the graph? It's so demotivating that many with this feeling inevitably quit to play something else they feel respects their time and effort more. However, it doesn't need to stay this way. As we've proved with these last updates, putting in the effort to make available quality feedback to the developers actually works. Now, don't mistake me for saying that I think this is anything that should be expected of someone if they are simply dissatisfied with the game. This was no easy task. It required constant effort, data mining, discussions, organizing, writing, proofreading, reviewing, rewriting to get it all to the quality that it was when we posted these articles back in July. And, if I'm being honest, there was still a lot of room for improvement, and countless subjects we still had to and have to cover now. It was a miracle that it came together in the first place, with how disorganized it, and especially I in particular, was. For the people including myself who wrote or informed the feedback through their work and research, we were also privileged to be a group of players with a backlog of knowledge and know-how from our time playing and taking apart the developers' previous games. And for us to have different skill sets useful for deeply understanding these things like modding, programming, reverse engineering, algorithms, etc. Which I'm extremely thankful for. But the problem with that is how concentrated this deep knowledge of the game is. Other than my channel and the website, there's no way of really getting this info out there, And since the developers are constantly hard at work on these patches, it's difficult to balance both trying to get the broader community aware of and involved in the process, and doing the work to create the feedback in collaboration with others who already have that backlog of knowledge. So, with the limited time we have before this game's support starts tapering off, we have to do things better if we want Elden Ring's community to really have the longevity it deserves. All of its predecessor games stopped getting patches after the last DLCs were published, which makes sense. These games are not a live service. And despite that, all of these games retain bustling communities decades past, which are cultivated initially from and largely retain their life through the multiplayer and discussion of it. Ask any Souls content creator that focuses purely on lore, challenge runs, modded content, or anything else non-multiplayer, they will tell you that this is the case. While I don't think Sekiro should have had a multiplayer system for countless reasons, it's useful to contrast its community with the community from Software's similar games that did have a multiplayer system. No matter the impression of people who play these games purely for the PvE experience may have when it comes to the worth of having such a janky online, the multiplayer being there is something that is valued by nearly anyone who finds home in any part of the game's community, regardless of if they actually participate in that part of the game. Which is why I think it's important to make sure the developers can move on from the game while leaving it in a state where people feel welcomed and interested in continuing to innovate things in the multiplayer scene. Whether it be balance, build setup diversity, the ease and quality of life of multiplayer features, or the presence of immersive role-playing elements like covenants, all these things being at the best of what we can realistically ask of the developers will directly correlate with this game's community being bigger, better, and retaining more liveliness in the long run. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this directly, where some sort of disappointment with the multiplayer shied a player away from continuing to participate in it despite being initially very interested. Many of these players even completely disappear from the community as a whole, and don't just move to other sections within it. With all that said, I hope you guys understand why this is all so important to me, and why I think you, as someone who's interested in Elden Ring, and possibly the Souls series as a whole, should care too. What I'd like to transition to explaining now is where I'm looking to take things with my channel and other projects to make a lot of what I want to do possible, and to be prepared as I can for the absolute bombshell that will be the DLC drop. First of all, my drives are like full to the brim with unused content. Interesting competitive and casual PvP sessions, conversations with notable players and creators, interesting or rare moments, examples of a PvP concept I can use in a future video to prove a point, funny moments, and a stupid amount more. And these will continue to happen as I play the game, so in between higher effort content I'm going to be posting much more of this with minimal effort and commentary. In particular, I hope these compilations and clips can get you guys more interested in participating in the multiplayer by showing you how fun, interesting, and deep it really is, and could be, with some key changes. I also plan to try and be more tactful when it comes to making content concerning relevant events and news with the game, so you guys can hear about it as soon as possible, even if it isn't up to the standard of, say, a video that takes a couple weeks to complete. This, of course, is all just what I intend and am planning to do. I've only been getting better at planning and organizing, but sparing the details, it's still very much a learning process for me. I can't at all give days or promises of weekly or however so videos, but I can say with the publishing of this video, which is the only update video I've ever done on this channel, my life and health feels in a state where I'm more poised than ever to push out the content I've been dreaming of creating. Also, beyond straight PvP content and deep dives, you can also expect straight up guides for many things PvP that people have been asking me for, as they are essential for making all kinds of PvP more accessible to all. Just to give you a sneak peek, I intend on making a video on how to set yourself up to have high performance, zero downtime, better connection PvP duel sessions with friends on the seamless co-op mod in this new custom arena created by Acetone Eyedrops, the lead map editor for the upcoming Convergence mod for Elden Ring. You can also host multi-person fight clubs in this arena with up to 6 players. The arena has a whole host of features and design choices that makes it far better for PvP than any existing arena or duel spot in the game. Next, once I have a pattern of regular content down, I'm going to go back to taking a more hands-on approach on the process of relaunching the website and assembling its team. I know you all have been waiting a long time for the website to see some updates, and one of the main reasons for that is because the only writers were like 2 people for 90% of it, and trying to do that right and in a timely manner while also having our own things to handle is just not practical. In the past months, me and community members Halvard and Notchell have been putting together a volunteer team for the website and its content, made up of talented community members that are passionate in seeing the multiplayer realized to its full potential. We also have contacts with other members and creators who won't be directly involved, but intend to collaborate with us on specific articles fitting for their expertise. However, it's been a learning process in terms of how we actually go about this and make sure things get done in both a timely manner and up to the standards that we're looking for. I don't want to just pump out suggestions that sound convincing and interesting, but don't have any objective metrics to show that each change is consistent in contributing to a greater end goal balance-wise. It's easy to get fixated on one element or mechanic and not realize how your changes would truly impact the meta on the macro scale. Mark my words, these things will come back to bite you, as they already have. Despite that, I'm mostly happy with the feedback we gave so far, especially in how well it reasoned when it came to describing problems and giving general solutions. But looking back, I really wish we had more confidence on giving specific suggestions rather than leaving it up to the developers to try their hand at it, despite it being clear that they really don't have the framework to balance introspectively. And don't get me wrong, their changes so far, especially based on our feedback, have been almost entirely positive implementations. But we could have had a way better game, even by now, if we were better at this. Much of what we've done to create a foundation for all the changes we will suggest is the development of a balancing philosophy and methodology. The philosophy is the more subjective element of what we think is desirable to pursue when it comes to balancing, while methodology is the more objective element. I'll explain both of those with a relatively brief explanation, starting with a rough summarization of our balancing philosophy so far. There's no objectively correct way to balance the PvP, but as we've discovered, players of all kinds share the same general dream of what a balanced Elden Ring would look and feel like to play. It's very diverse in how people suggest ways to get there, or what exact changes would need to be done to get there, but casual or competitive, invader or duelist, or even players focused on primarily PvE would benefit from a more balanced, diverse game and meta, except for those who tied their entire identity to using a single button on a specific weapon. Imagine if you could take your PvE build into PvP with all the interesting weapons, setups, and spells you selected, and not feel as if you need to get lucky or rely on your opponent's severe lack of knowledge to make what you planned work. That feeling that you earned your win through superior skills, plays, and predictions. The feeling that your opponent was truly bested. Imagine getting skilled with a two-handed greatsword, or with a pure caster build and playing against a player that has a similar level of mastery with the halberd off-stock setup, and getting the feeling that the match could go either way, instead of it feeling so clearly as an overwhelmingly uphill battle. Fundamentally, that setup is far superior to the aforementioned ones in 1v1s, and this clear difference in power is only often muddied by anecdotal results you can get by beating random players in one-off fights like the arena or invasions. But spar with the same player for long enough, and as long as there isn't an absolutely gigantic difference in skill, or something that is troubling for one of the other players to understand, the feeling of a setup's oppressiveness should be felt. By repeatedly validating if a change contributes to that overlapping objective, we can ensure our official feedback is both informed, but is never tunnel-visioned on our particular momentary interest. Like, wouldn't it be cool if this weapon or spell or skill would have this insane strength to give it a niche, without considering that that niche may be a bit too far and result in a large reduction in build diversity across the board. Niches and strengths are important for weapons to be both fun and have room for skill expression, but it has to strike a balance with that and its potential to kill the fun or depth of other content. The same can be said in reverse, where you may have a momentary interest in nerfing a particularly problematic strong piece of content due to its current negative effects on the game, without figuring out for sure that you won't kill that niche entirely, assuming the niche is worth keeping, which it usually is. This philosophy is not at all final. It's mostly in our heads and in a draft document. It is very much subject to change, as it hasn't been codified into fewer, specific words of what we are and are not looking for. So based off my words on it in this video, feel free to discuss this in the comments or anywhere else you'd like to get your own take on it before it is finalized into a public article accessible on the site. Now, the balancing methodology for comparison is simply the methods for which we try to get an objective understanding of the game balance. Something that simply hasn't really been done to the degree we're looking for in the entire history of Souls multiplayer. The proper framework is incomplete, but we have all the ideas and tools to complete it on the board. Basically, we would be developing reliable tests, sheets, and methods to quantize concepts like effective recovery, effective range, reach, pressure, or reactability, and use the data we collect to visualize the objective balance of the game, which will allow us to confidently make highly specific suggestions where applicable, and back it up with more than just our subjective understanding. I'll try to give more specific examples in future videos, but I hope that gives you a good idea of what we're trying to accomplish. But to reiterate what I said earlier, I've given Shell and the other staff reins of things for now as I focus on getting my channel back up and running. If you're interested in volunteering to help with any of this, you can find him on the Elden Ring PvP Discord and reach out to him via DMs. We also have plans to expand the website to more than just a place for curated feedback. Specifically, we'd want it to be a sort of hub and advertisement for the PvP community as a whole. A guide for beginners, a PvP wiki, a build database, an event calendar, currently live PvP live streams, and a lot more we're looking into implementing. Article content will also be more diverse, with vetted feedback being separated from more opinionated articles, or guide articles of all kinds for things like builds, setups, or mechanics. We also don't plan on limiting the site content to articles only, as we also have staff working on producing videos, including shorts that will be published to various platforms. We already have countless of these plans, scripted, voiced, and in development. All of this content will be posted on the newly created PvP accounts to represent the community and players behind the content. Here's a draft of a short video explaining how fandom hits work and how you can best take advantage of them in combat. While a lot of work and planning has already been done, there's no shortage of stuff left to do. If you can do anything listed on screen right now, or anything that seems like it would be useful for this project, be sure to contact Shell and he can get you sorted with something to do and introduce you to the team Discord. With my plans with the website summed up, once all this multiplayer stuff is in a good state, I want to diversify back into different parts of the Souls games that also interest me deeply, and that I've been dying to talk about for the longest time now. For example, deep analyses of many of the bosses and how their various aspects combine into a one-of-a-kind experience, modded boss fights, both unique and reworks of existing ones, and way more stuff that isn't at all PvP related is something that I'd really love to return to, especially with all the skills and knowledge I've picked up since I last did that kind of content. Not to mention all the countless amazing people I've met in the community since then, who all have their own knowledge, skills, and talents when it comes to modding and single player. I've had countless talks over the past years with these players of what we could accomplish in collaboration, and I want to make those ideas reality. I'm glad I was able to get all of this off my chest, but I have so much more to do and show you guys, so I'll immediately be getting to work on further content. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe with notifications if you don't want to miss out on that content, and subscribe to me on Patreon if you'd like to join the lovely people on screen. See you guys later.